Hey, everybody. Welcome again to the Risk Matrix podcast with James Junkin and myself, Dr. Martin, talking about risk in all its various forms in the workplace, not just safety, but everything else too. And today we're going to talk about business continuity.
Right.
We might even talk a little bit about disaster recovery. So
Absolutely.
before we do that, James, can you take us and give us a word from our sponsor?
Absolutely. I'm real excited about the sponsor for this particular podcast episode because this episode is being sponsored by Veriforce's newest instructor-led course, Lockout Tagout Authorized and Effective Persons Training. The failure to properly isolate energy has led to thousands of people being injured and hundreds killed each year. Lockout tagout violations. Number six on the most frequently cited OSHA standards for 2023. Veriforce's authorized and effective persons lockout tagout program has been developed and introduced to reduce serious injuries and fatalities among workers. The curriculum is extremely comprehensive. It offers both a theoretical and a practical application as required by the OSHA standard. So to learn more about Veriforce's newest course, email trainingsales@veriforce.com.
Thanks, James. So this is a topic that should be on everybody's mind again, especially in the South and the Gulf, as we ramp
East
into
Coast.
hurricane season. I'd like you to tell me a little bit about what you're reading about this season that's coming up.
Well, every year's hurricane season starts June the 1st, and some seasons offer more angst than others. And it's just part of living here, like snow is in New Hampshire. But if you live in the Gulf Coast along the eastern coast of the United States, you could not have been super excited when NOAA revised their hurricane outlook for 2024. NOAA is calling for between 17 and 25 named storms compared to an average of 14. They're saying this year will rival the number of storms of the historic year of 2005. Now, that may not mean much to folks that live in the upper Northeast.
Well, it might, and I'll say something about that in a minute, but go ahead. Down where you are.
2005 was the year of Hurricane Katrina, Rita, Wilma, historic storms whose names have been retired. So I don't want to be the kind of person that watches the Weather Channel and is afraid to go outside. Sometimes the Weather Channel will scare you to death, right? But we need to take note of it and we need to prepare. And whether it's storms, hurricanes in the deep south, tornadoes, nor'easters, any type of natural disaster, earthquakes where you are, extreme drought, extreme cold, whether it's natural events, man-made events, biological events like the pandemic that no one was prepared for. I'm reading the other day, Dr. Martin, bird flu in people. I'm like, here we go, man. Bird flu. How about that? That sounds like something I'd probably catch, right? Bird flu. So businesses need to be prepared with a business continuity plan for business interruptions. This used to be something that maybe it'd be once in a lifetime event, but these once in a lifetime events are happening every other year, every 3 years, every 5 years. So, you've heard people come out like even in just severe thunderstorms now. We have flooding in Houston, major flooding in Houston. It may not affect the entire city, but if it's your business that gets impacted about that, you need to have a business continuity plan. And what I'm finding is when I do deep dive contractor assessments, no one really has that. They've talked about it. They've got some experience.
They might have a plan, right? but what are they doing to execute that plan and to make sure that plan is up to date? So,
Yeah,
I just want to add, here in the Northeast, right, we're affected when you're affected. Okay. So when most companies, bigger companies have offices all over the United States, all over the world, right? And when one or two or three hubs go down, like in Houston or Florida or some of the bigger areas down there, Atlanta, it affects business continuity across the US and globally, right? Now, we are not immune in the Northeast and the Atlantic seaboard to natural disasters. I mean, it's been a while since we've had a hurricane come up the coast, right? But we have had Sandy, right? Was probably the most recent, right? There was Bob way back when in like 1990 or 1991. But we have massive snowstorms here. We have had record tides. This winter we had record tides on the eastern seaboard, even in my area. Shuts down businesses, blocks roadways, makes it hard for goods and services and materials and et cetera to get through. So business continuity is a thing, and it is a thing not just because of hurricane season, but affects everybody if a hub goes down. So
I think one of the things that's changed since the pandemic related to business continuity is we used to all go to a centralized location. We used to all end up in an office building, even though you may have office buildings and offices all over the United States if you're a national or global company, maybe even around the world. And so we had to be focused on business continuity related to that centralized location. And we could harden that centralized location. We can make, generators and off-site storage of computer data and all that stuff, that goes into a business continuity plan. But since the pandemic, work from home,
a lot of people have taken that away,
scattered all over the United States. And when most of them are working from their house, when their home is affected, now you got an even bigger problem because you've got key people scattered out all over, and you have to be concerned about their personal well-being and their connectivity. What happens if we can't get on the internet? And I'm a decision maker within an organization. So that's the kind of stuff we want to talk about today. Moving from the paper to an actual plan that can be executed. I mean, Mariner Gulf has a business continuity plan, as small as we are. But our key executives all live in the New Orleans metro area. We could all be affected in a single event, all of us, and decapitate the leadership team. So when we have named storms and things of that nature, we have a plan to set up off-site well away from this area to continue operations. And some of us will leave this area so we can continue on operating. That was a lesson.
Would that be the Cayman Islands, or would that be?
No, we go to Alabama, roll tide.
Roll tide. Roll
God's
tide.
country, right?
Okay. So I'd like to mention, James, you have a business continuity plan, and a lot of people also have disaster recovery plans. And while they are intertwined, right? And the emergency response cycle is always something that should be going on, right? You just don't have a plan and then not execute. Let's talk a little bit about the differences between business continuity and disaster recovery, right? Because they are two separate things.
Absolutely. Okay. You want the business to keep going through the disaster recovery. Major disasters recovery may take months, if not years, to recover from. We can't be out of business for months and years. Most businesses can't survive that.
And you must be improving in that cycle during that time. So business continuity focuses on keeping businesses operational, as you said, right? And disaster recovery focuses on restoring. So they're two different things, but they are on a cyclic wheel, right? So what is your plan? Okay. And in your business continuity plan, are you practicing your disaster
We'll
recovery
get to that.
steps.
Let's talk about what should go into a business continuity plan.
Okay.
Number one of the things that we highly recommend you put in a business continuity plan is someone who is responsible for the development of that plan and coordinating that plan, right? Go ahead and put it inside your policy, your business continuity plan, who that person is. That person's responsible for coordinating the efforts of business continuity and make it part of their task, not just when the event comes up, but in the planning stages of how you're going to go about your business continuity. That way, when we have different people taking different actions, it can already be planned out. It's too late. It is too late to draw this up in the dirt when they announce some named storm is forecast to hit you. It's too late. So you need to have a plan and somebody responsible for the organization of that plan. So we say put it in your program, their name, their title, their position, and have that person be somewhat senior. Now, here's what
make sure they know it. Make sure they know it's them.
Make sure they know it's them. All right. And here's what typically happens in organizations that are smaller organizations. This gets dumped in the safety professional's lap. Okay. You see these requests all the time through supply chain risk management platforms. Hey, upload your business continuity plan. Well, who's responsible for that? Probably your safety professional. But in your organization, ask yourself the question, is the safety professional the person who is best suited to lead our business continuity plan? Maybe not. Maybe it's somebody in operations. Maybe it's somebody in a different part of risk management. Maybe it's somebody in human resources. Maybe it's a senior, maybe it's your CEO. Whoever's responsible, don't just dump it in the safety professional's lap. Let's pick the person most effective and has the most time to be able to assemble all the parties involved to keep your business running. Safety's a part of it.
Let's remember too that it's a strategy, right? So while you are putting the execution of that strategy on that person, right? The strategy is built by the team.
By the team. And that's the second part of an effective business continuity plan, okay? Deciding who the key company employees are going to be from key departments to be members of the business continuity team. So you got a coordinator, but that coordinator needs a team. And the bigger you are, the bigger the team needs to be, right? Because again, this is not disaster response. This is how we're going to keep the business going.
How are we going to communicate?
How we're going to communicate? Are we relocating people to off-site locations? Do we have backup for data? Right? If we lose key employees, my chief financial officer is in a hurricane zone and they lose their house and they have no power. Who can step in tomorrow to make sure the bills get paid? That payroll goes out. That we continue to operate and be effective members of the supply chain, right? Because I'm looking at that from the contractor's perspective. Hiring clients want to know, they feel really bad for you when you have a natural disaster or something that happens in your area, but really what they want to know is how's that going to affect their business? How are you going to be able to, maybe it's, hey, I'm in the middle of this. I've got a client that's a hiring client that I send products to or provide services for, but I also have vendors. What happens if I lose that vendor? They were here last week. This week, their thing is underwater. Okay. Who is our secondary vendor? That's part of having a business continuity plan. So who's got to be involved in that? All the people that are in your procurement department. Somebody from procurement's got to be represented on that team. So it's not just saying the safety professional shall be our business coordinator, continuity coordinator. Might be the perfect person for your organization, might not be, but they have to have members of the team assembled. So operations, accounting, finance, procurement, HR,
communication, IT
need to be on this team.
Right. So what we're really talking about is leadership in the time of crisis, right? We're talking about what emergency response professionals, FEMA, and the planning professionals talk about all the time, right? You have the plan, but are you talking about the plan? Are
Well,
you improving?
that's really where this comes in. When we talk about management commitment in safety, what are we talking about? Management's committed to providing adequate resources, both human and capital, to fund a safety management system. The
And
same
time.
thing is true.
And time, right? Because you might have to dedicate time to
That's
talking
what I
about
mean.
this
You know,
strategy.
you've got to put adequate resources, both human and capital, i.e. time, into this business continuity plan. They have to have time to sit down and talk through issues as a team to make sure we've got budget set aside for this. That, you know,
Talk
and it
about
has
what's
to be something
changing.
that's on a priority, because you can get caught up in the day-to-day and like, you know, I ain't got to worry about that till, you know, the summertime comes, or I don't have to worry about wildfires. Hey, if
Or
I'm
I'll worry
a
about it
company
when
in
I have to worry
California,
about it.
if I'm a company in California, you don't think I'm worried about wildfires? Absolutely, I'm worried about wildfires. Our business can be here today, burn up tomorrow, look like crispy bacon
cut
at the
off.
Waffle House at 2:30 in the morning. What are we going to do? The time to address that is early. And as a decision maker, we need budget and we need human resources and we need time allocated within our business continuity plan to build the plan. Okay.
Okay.
Now, here's another pet peeve. This is not your emergency action plan, right?
Not your disaster recovery plan.
Not your disaster
All those
recovery
things
plan.
are within your business continuity plan. They are pieces of
They're
that
pieces
wheel.
of. So when we're sitting down, this would be a great time to have a brainstorming session, right? What are our risks? What could happen? Here, hurricane number one. What about tornado? You know, one I didn't think about many years ago. We were sitting here, I guess it's probably been about 7 years ago now, and we started having rain in the spring, and it rained and it rained and it rained and it rained some more. And we got like 14 inches a day for 7 days straight. And guess what? We were underwater. Roads were impassable. You know, people are having to be rescued from their home, and it's not hurricane season.
Bridges go out.
It's just rain.
Yep.
Okay. Let's use a present day one. What if I'm a business on the other side of the Francis Scott Key Bridge? We're just going along with our lives, and a huge ship hits the bridge, and the bridge ends up in the river. Well, I'm cut off from civilization. Do my bids allow for that? For this extra expense? You know, that
Trucking costs money. Trucking costs a lot of money
to go around and all these things. So I would say you need to have a brainstorming session and then think about, like you do with any other hazards, likelihood and severity. Right? So on my risk register for earthquakes in New Orleans, it may be on there, but it's down the risk register. If I'm in California, you know where it's going to be?
But you better know what you're going to do, right? Because, you know, pandemic wasn't on people's risk register, and we got hit in the face with that. You got to know what you're going to do. As a geologist, I will tell you that there is a failed rift system that runs right down the middle of the United States, right Midwestern states down Mississippi River ish. Okay.
Right.
And they do get earthquakes there, right? We did have mountain building in New Hampshire. We just had an earthquake in Massachusetts recently, right? Now they're not knocking out business, but they could, right? But they could. Have you thought about it?
Have you thought
at
about
least
it?
Put a few minutes into it.
And I don't think you should just sit there and say, okay, let's just take every natural disaster that possibly could happen. You have to look at likelihood, right? But then you have to say, how does that affect our business?
What if it happens to
impact on
somebody
our
else?
business is this going to be if we lose power, right? If key employees cannot connect to the internet, what's our data recovery plan? You know, how are we going to do this if we have a wildfire situation in California? You know, we all understand evacuate that's part of the emergency action plan. We're talking about business continuity. How does the business run next week? And I'm going to tell you somebody,
How does it run
has the
today?
best business continuity plan out there, and that's Waffle House. Okay.
Okay, explain.
You think I'm joking? Waffle House has a plan to get back immediately after a hurricane. Short of the building being destroyed and underwater, Waffle House has employees dedicated to the response team. They will come into the disaster zone. They will open up with a limited menu. I'm going to tell you, after Hurricane Gustav, if it hadn't been for Waffle House, I'd have starved to death. Now, they're only taking cash, and you might only be able to get burger and fries and
a waffle
and some eggs. But when you're hungry, right?
Right.
They have a business continuity plan, how we're going to get back to work. And not only does that business continuity plan help that organization, it's very meaningful for folks of us who live in disaster prone areas to know that they got our back. They're going to be here. They're going to get back open, you know? So
it's also comforting to know what your role is, right?
Absolutely.
As an employee or as a participant in the disaster recovery, you know, you talk about brainstorming and putting together the risk register, right? And we know that we need to look at that and update that regularly, whether it's annual or semi-annual or whatever it is that you think makes sense, right? But you also need to be talking about and communicating, especially with the people who are named in the plan or the divisions named in the plan. You need to be communicating when things change, right? Because that's part of leadership too, is communicating changes that may affect the plan, changes in the business, changes in the
biggest change: succession. Okay, it can happen. Business continuity doesn't just have to be tied to a natural disaster. What happens if your entire executive leadership team's wiped out? Who's taking the reins of this organization? Who's going to make sure payroll gets made on Monday?
Who's gonna fill in?
And a lot of companies they evaluate that risk. So they'll do things like this. I'm not putting all my senior staff on the same airplane. We're going to limit people driving together. Because again, I use natural disasters as a response because that's one of the things that mostly affects organizations probably the most. But this is business continuity, not a natural disaster plan response.
Could be cybersecurity attacks.
How are we going to continue to operate regardless of what the threat is? So what's the succession plan? Who's taking over? We have succession plan here at Mariner Gulf. What if I get sick and go into the hospital and I can't make decisions? Who's going to make decisions? If you don't have that in your plan, particularly if you are a contractor to family-run business, then there's confusion. There may be fighting. People don't know what to do. Go ahead and plan. How does the business run if we lose a key person or persons? Who's stepping up within this organization in the immediacy? You can fix things long-term. But remember, we're talking about incident happens over Memorial Day weekend. Tuesday, we got to open up. What's our plan B?
We got to get our goods and services going. We need to supply our whatever working on projects or places we're going. You know, so you talk about next week. I mean, I'm talking about today, right? Because if you lose functioning of a business, sometimes even for a day or two, you could destroy your money-making potential and your revenue for quite some time.
I also think it's a time, I found this out the hard way. Business interruption insurance. Know what that covers and what the limit is. Okay. What the limit is. I was surprised to find out that getting hit by a major category 3 hurricane is not the qualifier for business interruption. You know what got us covered?
What?
We lost power and we lost water. If you could prove that you didn't have water and power to your facility, and you have to prove it, right? So I had to go back and I had to get the Entergy power outage map and the text messages they send you. There's a power outage been detected in your area, and save those to help support the claim. So the time to do this is not reactive when you don't have power and you don't have water. Make sure that you understand what you have to do with your business interruption insurance and when it kicks in.
And who to talk to when you need it.
You know, the second part of that is a lot of people assume business interruption insurance means I'm going to get a check for the sales that I missed out on for the previous month. I guarantee you that's probably not on your rider, right? So I was surprised to find out after a hurricane that I only had $25,000 worth of business interruption insurance. That's not a lot, right? We still got payroll
Enough to make payroll
and employees to take care of because they got families to take care of, and you know, businesses, billing, cash flow is the lifeblood of everybody's business. So the time to sit down with your insurance company is when you're developing your business continuity program. Know what your expectations are from them for business interruption. If you need to up that coverage, right? Understand what business interruption coverage is. What type of events qualify for that coverage to kick in? It's not everything. It's not everything. You know, there's a lot of terrorism exclusions now in insurance policy. So if there's a terrorist event, well, how do we define terrorist event? You got to look at the definitions in that, right? So
look at the fine print.
Read the fine print. Read the fine print. But it begins with having this discussion related to business continuity, whatever the risk is, natural disaster, man-made disaster, cyber disaster, biological disaster, disaster amongst staff, death of key employees, you know, whatever it is that pops up on your risk register, you need to have a plan. You need to have a plan. And now's a good time to talk about those plans so the business can continue.
Right. And you need to talk about the plan continually. I'm telling you, you need to practice, practice, practice. Emergency management professionals will tell you that if you don't practice and you don't refresh and you don't update and you don't critically think about that, or that person that you've defined in your program is not critically thinking about that as part of their job, you may fail when it comes time to recover from a disaster and get your business back up operational. So, you know, planning.
When at 9/11, Opus used to put out, you know, they put out the oil prices, spot prices, rack prices all around the United States daily. And after 9/11, they went a few days, they couldn't put anything out. They weren't really prepared for that. I don't know anybody's prepared for that instant at that time. The fact that you would have an attack like that on a central key business sector of our economy in society, the way that went down. Obviously, businesses probably weren't prepared for that. And Opus wasn't prepared for that. They got back up in a hotel room with a guy with a laptop, right? And they did some heroic things and went really the extra mile to get the economy back going. What's my point? Do you want your business trying to run off a laptop in a hotel room by somebody who hadn't slept in 3 days? You need to have a business continuity plan, and you've got to test it. You've got to test it. So what does that mean? That means we're going to take resources away from running the daily operation to try to mimic a business continuity situation. Drills, just like fire drills, emergency response drills, things like that. If your part of your plan is, hey, we're going to have off-site, setups to run our business in case something affects key employees and they've got to evacuate, let's give them a place to go here and let's try out standing up our business at a off-site location if that's part of what you do. If it is a key employee thing, let's have a drill where we take James out of the company. All right. And give some mock decisions that need to be made by the next person in succession. You've got to practice this stuff because it's too late. We say this in football. It's too late to draw it up in the dirt when the game starts.
That's right. That's right. So I think we covered that topic, James. Is there anything else that you wanted to add? I think if you want some information on business continuity, and you haven't had a class in it like James and I have, or taught a class in it, a good place to go is FEMA. They have some free courses on the FEMA website on their learning, and you can always Google it. There's a lot of people that put out blogs and stuff about business continuity, disaster recovery, what goes in a plan. I know Mariner Gulf, you guys put together business continuity plans for people. So, you can always hire a consultant. But there are places to learn. I think one of the first places I would recommend is to go to the FEMA website and check it out. Check it out and check out the independent study courses that they have there, because they're really kind of enlightening on what goes into the planning, disaster recovery, the pieces of the cyclic process that must go on to stand up a business, to put it back together, to improve it, and to improve the plan for the next time something happens, because there will be a next time.
Absolutely. I had to learn the hard way in a lot of situations that I did not consider as a business owner. And so I think FEMA is an excellent resource. I like to say this: mitigation is always cheaper than abatement, right?
That's right.
In this case situation, planning is always cheaper in the front end than the lack of planning and trying to respond on the fly on the backside. So
absolutely.
Best wishes to everyone out there. Hopefully you never have to enact a business continuity plan, but given the state of affairs with the weather, natural disasters, pandemics, cyber attacks, the threats are there and they should pop up on all of our risk registers. So hopefully you found this episode to be enlightening. If nothing, if it wasn't super informative, maybe you can take that information to kind of spur the conversation with your management team about developing a business continuity program. So, Dr. Martin, what do we want these folks to do?
We want them to keep following us and keep listening to our program here on the Veriforce YouTube channel and Spotify. I want you to go and like and subscribe, smash that subscribe button, and go out there and put some comments in there. We don't see a lot of comments. We're happy to have conversations with people, spur other areas of risk and discussion for our program. We're always looking for guests that have ideas on risk topics that we haven't covered before, pertaining to the workplace, not just safety. So follow us, because you can get some good information and at least you can get the conversation started. So thanks for listening. And James, you want to take us out?
Yep. Until next time, thank you all for listening to our podcast. We appreciate all of you. You keep bringing those workers home safe from high hazard jobs. Out.
Roll Tide.